Excited for a road trip? Start it off right with auto coverage from American Family Insurance. J.D. Power ranked us #1 in customer satisfaction with the auto insurance shopping experience among mid-size insurers. Get a quote at amfam.com.
American Family Insurance.
For J.D. Power 2021 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. American Family Mutual Insurance Company, SI and its operating companies, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin.
Welcome back to the Leytonstone Loves Film 2021 podcast series. My name is Stuart Wright, and regular listeners will know I've been the host of the Britflicks podcast since 2013. For newer listeners who came here for the Leytonstone Loves Film 2021 content, I've been a resident of Leighton for over 20 years, and I'm proud to be part of a film festival happening on my doorstep in East London, UK. In the previous 9 episodes of the Leytonstone Loves Film 2021 podcast series, we were able to preview what was to come with many of the filmmakers, film organisations and venue owners taking part in this year's free 4-day film festival. There were open-air screenings in Langthorne Park and indoor events in Leytonstone Library, St John's Church, Phillybrook, Heathcote and Star, Nexus Centre, online and more. As well as films, there were talks, film quizzes, installation, dancing, food, interactive trails and workshops. There was the world premiere of Stowe Films' One Day in Langthorne Park, as well as big screen classics such as Menelik Shabazzi's Looking for Love, Ed Hondo's Caribbean epic West Indies, Joan Littlewood's Sparrows Can't Sing, where Barbara Windsor, among many others, first appeared in film, and cult classics like John Waters' Cecil B. Demented and the Thai heist thriller Bad Genius. There were Fourth Land's spiritual journeys full of joy and self-discovery, Gary Lewis's Graveyard Shift tour that took in memories of Leytonstone's film past. There were new short films created just like the pioneers of cinema did in the Victorian era with Dom Stinton. There was an exhibition offering a fresh take on posters of legendary film titles and so much more. Above all else, this 4-day celebration of film and film cultures brought together many from the Leytonstone community and attracted visitors to the area from as far as France and South Africa.
This is Dewinda Bansal. I'm an artist and a producer from Wolverhampton.
You are indeed. So how was your Leytonstone Loves Film?
So Leytonstone Loves Film Festival this year was really interesting because we took Asian Women and Cars, the Road to Independence film and Q&A online completely. And that, whilst it would have been great to have an event at the actual festival, what going online meant was that so many different people could actually tune in from different parts of the country. And it also meant that the Asian women who I wanted to invite to be panelists, and one of them is vulnerable. She's in her late 80s. Is she 89? She's in her late 80s anyway. And she came on with her granddaughter in the Q&A, and so did a mother and daughter who are from Waltham Forest. They came onto the Q&A. There was me, and there was another lady from Oxford who runs a brilliant project, all inspiring sort of stories and documenting stories of the Asian community from older Asian women. And it was such a nourishing conversation, and I think it was really interesting talking about cars, women of a particular generation, but then trying to link it back to, well, what are these stories of cars and technology? Actually, they're stories of just being human. Talking about sort of, the car as being a point of being able to travel, to go to work, but also looking at the different types of freedom that women have got, about where they've been able to travel further afield, different jobs they've been able to take. How much you can get done in one day when you can drive, which is about being productive, of course. But I think, it was a brilliant, it was a really good event, and it was really well attended. I think we had like 70 people sign up to it online.
Fantastic.
And many of those came through to the Q&A and participated, and it was some really interesting insights about how the different audience members saw parts of themselves in the stories of these older Asian women, and they might not have been from the Asian community.
So what can you give us any anecdotes from the Q&A that followed?
Well, one of the interesting insights that I got was from a gentleman, actually. He said that, well, Dewinda, you're talking about Asian women of a particular generation not being encouraged to drive, but it was actually the very same thing in the white community as well of that time, particularly working class stories where, the roles are very divided and were very divided at that time, where it was like, no, the house is the woman's domain and the car and going out to work is the man's domain. And we were sort of just talking about how those stories actually stretch across time and culture. Wow.
What's next for Dewinda then? What have you got in your near future?
Right, I'm working on a few different projects at the moment, but one of the ones that is coming up immediately is Curious Objects of Women's Independence. And one of the things that's really strongest in all of my work, and people will see it who follow my work, is I'd have this thing about independence. And this new project is commissioned by Warwick Arts Centre. It's for their contribution towards Coventry City of Culture programme. It's going to be opening in May 2022 at the Mead Gallery, and so I'm working on that right now.
What is your interest in independence then? Where's that coming from? Or how have you found yourself concentrating on that theme?
I think I've found myself concentrating on that because when you're independent, you there's no reliance on anyone, and it's about self-reliance. But when you're independent, you can also help other people. So I think it's always been this thing of, well, when you can fill yourself up, then you can give more to other people.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you for coming back on the podcast to let us know how Leytonstone Loves Film went.
Thank you.
You are listening to the Leytonstone Loves Film podcast series. Let's get back to the interviews.
This is Dom Stinton. I organised the Makers Like Acres workshop at this year's Leytonstone Loves Film Festival.
And how was your workshop?
Do you know, I'm really happy with how it went. It's the first time I've run a workshop of this type, so there are a lot of unknown quantities. It's a bit of a random one, inspired by the Victorian filmmaker Bert Akers, showing people how to make a film in the style of Bert Akers on a tripod, one shot, telling the whole scenario in 90 seconds. And added to that, having some actors in Victorian costumes presenting the workshop in character as Bert. So there are a whole lot of variables like, would people get it? Would they get into it? But it was amazing. You know, the actors really went for it. The people doing the workshop, the volunteers, they really got into it, directing the actors. We had some great costumes as well. So I'm very lucky to get all the costumes and props that we did. And it was just amazing, really empowering people to think of themselves as filmmakers and really lean into the fun of the event.
And what kind of work got produced then from the people attending the workshop?
Everyone who took the workshop produced a short film. And by short film, I mean like a 90-second sketch based on one of the scenarios I gave them. And every scenario was based very loosely on the life of Bert Akers, who had an amazing life. He was born in Virginia, USA. He was a frontiersman in the USA, studied at the Sorbonne in Paris, came to England. So everything was loosely based on that. So we had, for example, we had a scene where Bert was a frontiersman and he was wrestling with a bear.
Fantastic.
So little funny sketches. And all of these 90 seconds long, they're going to be edited together. Yeah. And hopefully we're going to show them in public in the not too distant future, somewhere like Langthorne Park, have a live piano accompaniment, and that will be like the culmination of the whole thing.
That is amazing. That's amazing. You must be really proud.
I was really proud to see how much people are getting out of it, because I don't take personal credit for what they did. I just gave them the opportunity to get out there and do it, and to see them having so much fun and being so creative was just great.
No, it is. It's the freeing yourself up when you're given permission to be creative and there's no pressure is a lovely feeling. beyond what you were doing, is there any highlights of Leytonstone Loves Film you want to share with us?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I couldn't get to see as much as I would have liked, partly because of my own workshop and all of the organisation for that. But I did get to see a lot of the things in the library, like the Apney Film Club, which I was looking forward to before. And that was just great, how they made cinema into a whole event, inspired by Bollywood. You'd watch a 3-hour film, but there'd be social events and dancing. So that was amazing. And they also had a screening of Sparrows Can't Sing in the library auditorium, which was written by Stephen Lewis, Blakey from On the Buses, who's buried in St Patrick's Cemetery, Walthamstow, and also starring Barbara Windsor, of course. So, that was a nice, really poignant screening. And it's just great when they turn the main hall into the cinema, because it really looks the part.
Yeah, the library's a bit of a TARDIS, isn't it, in terms of what you see on the outside and what you find on the inside?
Yeah, I've always thought so. It's quite a strange building. I think it's like made of a series of interlocking hexagons.
Quite possibly. So what's next? I mean, you're gonna compile the films that were made, the short films that were made in your workshop. But what else have you got on the horizon?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I'm going to do some art community workshops now with the Infinite Oasis charity, which is based over at Leighton, Leytonstone.
Yeah.
And that's working with older members of the community, showing how them to do like arts and crafts. And I've also got some film projects that I want to do. And apart from that, I would really like to give Makers Like Acres another go with a different group of people, because I think it's something where a different group will bring their own ideas to it. So it's something that could always be repeated and you'll get different results.
Indeed. Well, look, thank you very much for coming back on the podcast to share what happened for you.
Well, no, thank you for asking me, Stuart. It's been a real pleasure.
You are listening to the Leytonstone Loves Film podcast series. Let's get back to the interviews.
Hi, this is Gary Lewis of Hitchcock Talks and Tours. I did the Graveyard Shift tour and the Walking in the Footsteps of Hitchcock tour.
Nice to meet you. How was the Leytonstone Loves Film for you?
I was actually brought in late 3 weeks beforehand because I'd been involved 2 years before. And it was Saturday the 18th of September. We met at 1 p.m. at Leighton Tube Station, and it was to do my Graveyard Shift tour. So it was the biggest ever attendance I'd had. There was 20 people there. So we met at Leighton at 1 p.m. and we had a lady from Melbourne, Australia, a couple from Johannesburg, South Africa, a bloke called Tommy Tyler, who was Reg Varney's son, because in St Patrick's Cemetery, the first grave we visited was the grave of John McCarthy, and he was the landlord of Mary Kelly. He summoned the police on the morning of the 9th of November, 1888, when the body of Mary Kelly was discovered. So that was the first grave we went to. Then we went to the grave of Mary Kelly. I mean, she was buried there on the 19th of November, 1888, left in a pauper's grave for 100 years. And then a film was made there in 1987 called A Prayer for the Dying. And a local man brought it to the attention of Mickey Rourke, the American actor.
Oh, right.
And he paid for the grave. So, I was standing around talking to people about the life of Mary Kelly, that she was the last victim of Jack the Ripper, who I suspect Jack the Ripper could have been. And I said that people leave money as a mark of respect. So people were putting money into the grave of Mary Kelly. And then from there, we moved on to the Alfred Hitchcock family plot, his immediate family, his mother, his father, his brother-in-law, Harry Lee, from his sister's first marriage, his auntie, Catherine, and his mother, Emma Hitchcock. They're all in the immediate family plot, but there's 3 family plots there to Alfred Hitchcock. And then we moved on to the grave of Stephen Lewis. He played Blakey in On the Buses. That he was an actor, he was a comedian, he was a playwright, and talking about his early life at Joan Littlewood's acting studio. And then I happened to mention that he was in On the Buses and wrote 12 episodes with Bob Grant. And this chap just came forward. He said, "My name's Tommy Tyler. I'm the nephew of Reg Varney."
You were not expecting that?
That just came out the blue. He said, "I'm the nephew of Reg Varney." And I went, "Oh, okay." And I told him about that, Stephen Lewis wrote the play called Sparrows Can't Sing. And when it was, turned into a film in 1963, he did the screenplay, and he appeared in it in a block of flats in Stepney. But it was the film that Barbara Windsor made. It broke the mold. It made her a big star. And I said the movie was shown in America in the 60s, and they had to watch it with subtitles because they couldn't understand what the English people were talking about. Apples and pears and almond rocks, and so that was quite a surprise, a shock when I met this guy Tommy Tyler. And then we moved on to the grave of Timothy Evans, and he was the last. He got wrongly accused, or he got wrongly convicted of the murder of his wife Geraldine, his baby Geraldine, and his wife Beryl. And then it was discovered 3 years later that Christie had performed the murders at 10 Rillington Place. And that he got a pardon in 1966 by the then Home Secretary Roy Jenkins. So everybody was listening on this, and a film was made about it, 10 Rillington Place. I said it was a travesty of justice, but one woman didn't agree. She looked at me like in disgust, like he deserved to die, which I can't. I have to agree to disagree. But you're not going to please everybody on the tour. And the last two plots I took them to was the Alfred Hitchcock's uncle called Joseph Hitchcock, and he married a woman called Catherine, and they had 6 children, and 2 of them are in the family plot, and one of them is the Reverend John Hitchcock, who was Alfred Hitchcock's cousin. His parish was in Harrow, and he was a Catholic priest for something like 37 years. And I said to the crowd, I said, this possibly was Hitchcock's inspiration for the 1953 movie called I Confess, where Montgomery Clift played a Catholic priest on trial for a murder he didn't commit. And then the last grave I showed him in the graveyard was, I said, here he is, Alfred Hitchcock. Well, it was Alfred Hitchcock, but not him. It was his uncle, Alfred Hitchcock, of the same name, who died in 1926, and the son of the same name, Alfred Hitchcock, who died in about 1944. And his brother, William Hitchcock, is in there. Nobody was taken in. I said, look, here's Alfred Hitchcock. And one person went, oh, and went for the camera. And they went, slow down. He's in Bel Air, Los Angeles. And they said he got cremated and thrown in the Pacific Ocean. So then we came out the graveyard. 4 people actually stayed in the graveyard because they wanted to have a look around. Some had family members in there. And we worked our way down 98 Grove Green Road, and we went to the house of Paul Hardcastle. I don't know if you remember that he wrote that big hit in 1985-19. He actually wrote it in the North Cove pub next door.
He did, yeah.
Then he went over because he'd watched a documentary called Vietnam Requiem. So he went in the house that his mother, he lived in with his mother, and he recorded it in the front living room. And then, like, Chrysalis Records picked it up, and it went to number 1 in the UK for 5 weeks, number 1 in 13 different countries around the world, France, Switzerland, New Zealand, South Africa, I believe. And it made him a big star. I was actually the postman in Leytonstone when he was receiving all these recorded deliveries, like wads of them. And we thought he was getting lots of parking tickets and speeding fines, but now we now know it was recording contracts, it was royalties, checks were coming in. He wasn't, he probably didn't even drive at that stage. So, we came away from his house, and then there's a plot of land on Grove Green Road called Linear Park. And there's 14 stones there dedicated to the 500 houses that were demolished to make way for the M11 Link Road. So the first, I showed them pretty much all of them, but there was 3 points on them that I think are of real interest. There's the first one there to Dr. Inglis, who lived at 159 Grove Green Road. And he championed the cause of the NHS. He wanted the NHS to get up and running. But he was a doctor in the 30s that believed in healthcare for all, and his rates were reasonable, that the working classes could go to him and afford his healthcare, and he was still there in the early 1980s. He was still there as a doctor, so he must have been there like 50 years. But they demolished that house, and then we went to one at I think it was 193 Grove Green Road, and it was a garage that was owned. It was built in 1928. It was owned by Godfrey Dick Ponsford, and it was a petrol station and a garage. And it was the only one that was in Leytonstone in that year. Your next nearest petrol station and garage was in Hackney, and he said he did reasonable rates for the doctors. All doctors' cars will be, seen pretty pronto. and we'll do a special rate. So he probably was doing Dr. Inglis's car, you know.
Yeah.
And they said in the 1940s, during World War II, it was nothing unusual to see jeeps and tanks pull up, you know, tanks that were on their way probably to, you know, the D-Day invasion to refuel for petrol. And the UXB squads used to pull up as well to refuel their trucks and jeeps because they were on their way to the Hackney Marshes where they used to detonate the unexploded ordnance, you know. So there was that one. There was another one, Stone to Dolly Watson. She lived at 34 Claremont Road. She lived there for 92 years, all her life. And she got a compulsory purchase order that she wouldn't adhere to. She said, I'm not leaving. So on the last day, you know, she was taken out by her son. And she died a couple of months later in a care home, basically broken hearted, you know.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring attention to those three stones. And then, like, this was another shock. I went to 351 Grove Green Road and 2 people out the tour just went missing. I didn't know where they'd gone to. I got to 351 Grove Green Road, where the house of Stuart Freeborn, and these 2 people just appeared. Their name was Steph and Reese, and they were both Star Wars fans. And it turns out that they live in the house at 351 at Grove Green Road of Stuart Freeborn. He was born on the 5th of September 1914, and he lived his early life in Leytonstone.
Right.
And he's best remembered that he created the characters of Yoda and Chewbacca in Star Wars, you know. But they said, come on the veranda, you know, would you like a cold drink? You know, tell us all about his life. And I said he was on the Thief of Baghdad in 1940. He did Alec Guinness's makeup for the movie Great Expectations, where he played Fagin. He did Alec Guinness's makeup again in the 1956 film Bridge on the River Kwai. Stanley Kubrick hired him in 1964 for the movie Dr. Strangelove, and he did the makeup for all 5 characters that Peter Sellers played. And then 4 years later, he was hired again for 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Wow.
1972, Alice in Wonderland. 76, he did the makeup for Lee Remick and Gregory Peck in the movie The Omen. And then, like 1977, he gets hired by George Lucas, and he does the makeup and creates the character Yoda in the movie Star Wars. 3 years later, he creates Yoda for in the movie The Empire Strikes Back, that Yoda was based on his own face and that of Albert Einstein. Then he worked on the next one, I think it was called The Return of the Jedi. And then from 80 to 87, he worked on the Superman movies. And he passed away on the 5th of February 2013. But Leytonstone honoured him with a blue plaque. And the tour actually ended at the side of the railway bridge, where there's 3 murals, but only 2 exist now. So I had to show him the picture of Yoda that used to exist. And there's the mural of Chewbacca. And then, you know, people clapping and I want to take you for a drink. And I went over to the local pub over the road, the Heathcote, and we were just, you know, we're winding down, talking about that event. So that was a great day. And then Steph and Reese turned up. You know, we want to talk some more about this. And I said, I'm pretty hungry now and I'm done talking for the day. You know, I think that's it. That's a wrap. You know, but I'd never seen these people before, and I've lived in Leytonstone for 42 years. So that was day one. And then the next day, it was, I think, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, that I was doing the Walking in the Footsteps of Hitchcock tour. That I was sitting there. A friend of mine called Jim turned up, who lives in Clapham in southwest London. And we said at 10 to 1, I said, it just looks like you and me, Jim. You know, I think it'll be an early day. I think we're going to cut away early today, you know. And then these 2 women turned up. One lived in Leigh-on-Sea and the other one in Benfleet in Essex. Suddenly 30 people turned up. And 4 of them had been on the graveyard shift the day before. You know, and I got the tour started with these 30 people, but I was dressed like this, you know, T-shirt, shorts on. I had no umbrella, and the heavens opened up. And I got as far as Leytonstone High Road near St John's Church, and 10 people just bailed out. They didn't have hats, coats, umbrellas. One guy says, my poor Lenny, he was talking about his dog, you know, that doesn't have the rain will affect my dog. So they left. And as I was going round on the tour, somebody gave me an umbrella. Somebody bought me an umbrella. Yeah. So we actually finished that that tour about 2:00 in the afternoon at Paramount House. And I finished with about 20 people. So that was my involvement, really, those 2 days.
Amazing. I mean, I've lived in Leighton for 20 years, and just listening to you now over 10 minutes, it's been an absolute education. I didn't realise the rich tapestry of sort of film history right under our foot, right, almost everywhere we look. I mean, I live near Leyton Orient. I walk from Leyton Orient to the O'Neill's pub, and I've literally passed these landmarks you've talked about numerous times. That's amazing.
Yeah, there's plenty of history.
Yeah, no. And it just gives me to say thank you very much for giving us your thoughts on the Leytonstone Loves Film.
Okay.
You are listening to the Leytonstone Loves Film podcast series. Let's get back to the interviews.
This is Richard Clark from Radiant Circus. I help promote independent film events across London and was a first-time partner in this year's Leytonstone Loves Film Festival.
Now, remind us, Richard, what were you doing at Leytonstone Loves Film, and how was it?
I had 2 events in this year's programme. The first was called Wunderkammer, and it was an attempt to try and showcase how vibrant the alternative cinema scene in London is. And it was intended both for people who make alternative cinema, so the independent film exhibitors and promoters, but also audiences with a passion for film. And we had 4 exciting speakers talking about their recent exciting screen projects, and then we had a surprise feature film and some networking to kind of wrap the evening up. And the other project was a queer horror double bill with my friends at Last Frame Film Club, which in some senses, I have to admit, was more of a kind of a personal odyssey for us both, because we both really love horror films. We both have a real passion for queer cinema. So it was an opportunity to see if we could rope the 2 things together and put on an event. And that was also really successful. We had a sellout crowd and a queue down the corridor, which was a delight.
Fantastic. No, it's lovely to hear that, and even more so in these COVID times.
Yes, I mean, the one thing I'm really pleased with is how well audiences responded to these COVID times and came out seemingly en masse for so much of the festival this year. Our events were really well attended, and as I say, we couldn't pack any more into the queer horror double bill. And seeing a beautiful crowd on beautiful beanbags soaking up 2 beautiful horror films was an absolute delight after the last 18 months, it has to be said.
And what was your surprise screening at your first event? What did you go for?
Oh, well, I thought there was no finer way to reward the generosity of a bunch of independent film promoters than to show a film that satirises independent cinema. And so I showed John Waters' Cecil B. Demented.
Oh, wow.
Which was a surprise screening right up until the moment when we pressed play. And I think I managed to surprise no one more than myself by managing to keep the secret for so long. So we had these really passionate presentations about diverse DIY independent film screenings. And then we showed a film that largely satirises everything that we cared about on that evening. But it was an absolute delight. And I can still hear the laughter in my ears, which I was slightly worried about, because John Waters' taste in bad taste isn't necessarily for everyone. And so when I pressed play, after having read out possibly the most detailed and complicated content warning that I could possibly have written, the crowd ended up having a good time, and it was wonderful.
Yes, I can imagine. Yeah, if you know you're going to watch John Waters, you know what you're in for. But if you don't know John Waters is coming, then it could be a surprise.
Indeed, and although Cecil B. Demented is one of his later works, he has not lost none of the ability to shock by that point.
No.
So, but fortunately, the crowd took it in a really positive vein, and people, I was really glad to see, didn't take themselves or the film too seriously, and they lapped it up.
Fantastic. And for you, what would you say is a highlight of Leytonstone Loves Film for you?
The key thing for me is the opportunity really to collaborate with so many other wonderful independent exhibitors, and of course the Barbican themselves, in helping to commission and support the programme. I think possibly like you, Stuart, I spend a lot of my time working on film on my own, because I create a blog, I list, I share information about screen events in London, and I try and piece together projects that make sense for me with what I'm doing and what I'm seeing, and how I'm trying to promote independent cinema across the city as a whole. But that sometimes gets No, I don't want to sound tragic, but it's a solo task. So to be able to collaborate with a wide team of brilliant programming partners, and then to be in deep with the particular partner that I had on the Last Frame Film Club, but also all of the speakers and contributors to Wunderkammer. It was just a really, really lovely opportunity to kind of live cinema outside of my normal world and to help stage a little bit of it myself.
And what's next for Radiant Circus? Have you got any other events planned elsewhere?
Well, we've got two things that we're carrying on running with. The first is to try and stage another Wunderkammer event, to try and continue this idea of showcasing and networking the independent film promoters across London, because there really seems to be a wonderful appetite for bringing people together and sharing really exciting and creative projects that have happened so other people can learn from and be inspired by them. So we're looking for a second home for Wunderkammer, and I hope to be announcing some locations and dates and times in the near future so that people can carry on coming in together and sharing their brilliant ideas and their brilliant practice. And another project I've also got, which we're calling Revive the Dark, which is our ongoing attempt to support independent film exhibitors and help them return back to venues after the cinema shutdown. So with my subscribers, we're raising a small amount of money and sponsoring screen events so that we can help take some of the risk out of showing films that audiences might not be familiar with. And we'll have some more announcements about the films that we're sponsoring in that season coming up. We've already supported Zodiac Film Club to show Jane Campion's erotic thriller In the Cut, and the 1230 Collective to show Perry Hensel's No Place Like Home, which we supported them to screen at the Rio Cinema last Sunday. There are more exciting announcements to come, and I'm really excited about that programme too.
Wow, it sounds like you've got a lot on your plate. So we'll put a link in the show notes. People can follow what's going on. It just gives me to say thank you very much for coming back on the Britflicks podcast to let us know how Leytonstone Film went.
Well, thank you very much indeed. It's been a joy to be here.
You are listening to the Leytonstone Loves Film podcast series. Let's get back to the interviews.
This is Helen Taylor from Stories and Supper.
And how was your Leytonstone Loves Film?
Leytonstone Loves Film was great for us. It was the first time we've done a public event for almost 2 years. So that was kind of, it was amazing to kind of be back sort of seeing people outside of the group. And it was also great that we managed to do lots of different things. So we showed 2 films that we'd made during lockdown. But we also were able to give the opportunity to some of the people involved in our group to perform their poems to a big audience, and they've not had that opportunity before. And then also we were cooking food again. So we were frying pakoras and making cakes with the produce from our allotment. So that was really nice as well, to be serving food to kind of the public. And it was a great event and everyone really enjoyed it. We had a really good time.
Sounds amazing. So, outside of your event, what was one of your highlights of Leytonstone Loves Film for you?
I'm going to kind of cheat here because
please do.
I'm going to still say our event, because we were really lucky in that our event was actually a community showcase.
Right.
So we were able to collaborate with X7 Dance and then with Liza Fletcher and Esther Neslin from E17 Films. So although it was our event, it was also their events. And that, for me, was a real highlight because it meant that we got to see the amazing work that they've been producing.
Yeah.
But also it meant that we were able to take our work to a completely different audience. So it wasn't people coming just to see Stories and Supper. It was people who were coming to see the Avenue Road film and to see X7's film. So I think for all 3 groups, it really worked because it meant that we were kind of bringing an audience to each other. And that kind of community production was really special for me, I think, because it wasn't just, here's a film, go and see a film, consume a film. It was actually a real community event. And I think that more than I kind of got the feeling of that at the last Leytonstone Loves Film, I think that was really special to me, that it was actually a community showcase, and it was a real community showcase, and it felt like the community were part of it and involved. So I loved that about it.
No, I don't think that was cheating at all. What is Stories and Supper up to next? Or is there any news you can share, anything you need to let people know?
Yeah, well, during lockdown, we were gathering, like writing, which some of which was part of those films, but also other work we did in our online workshops and then since. So I'm now just doing the final edits to our book that we're going to be publishing. So it should be out at the end of October, ready for people to buy for their Christmas presents.
Fantastic.
So please look out for our new book, which is an anthology of poetry and stories written by refugees and asylum seekers. So it's very pertinent to what's going on at the moment. And I think people kind of maybe be surprised by it, because I think people will maybe expect, certain kinds of stories, and they might be surprised by what they find in there, because there's a lot of, a variety of writing about, nature and family and childhood and all kinds of things that people have written about. So that's what we're working on at the moment.
And how will people be able to get hold of the book once it's available?
So they'll be able to either buy it on our website. They can buy it directly through the website, or they'll be able to buy it at Christmas markets. So we'll be doing the Hoe Street Christmas market and various other Christmas markets. And we're hoping to have a launch event. And then if all goes well, a supper club in December. So probably a launch event at some point in November. So people just need to look out on our Facebook and our website for information about those events, and then they can grab their copies.
Brilliant. Well, look, I'll put links in the show notes to your website and Facebook, and it just gives me to say thank you very much for coming back on the podcast.
Thank you. It's been great. Cheers.
You are listening to the Leytonstone Loves Film podcast series. Let's get back to the interviews.
Nick Bertram from the Stowe Film Lounge here, an independent cinema running for nearly 10 years in Waltham Forest and beyond, a fully mobile operation taking cinema out to new audiences.
Brilliant. And how was your Leytonstone Loves Film? What did you do? Do you want to give a quick recap as to what Stowe Flans were up to?
Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic, Stuart. We collaborated with Sam Francis of Ex-Heaven fame. They're wonderful dance studios down at the Nexus Centre, right down at the bottom of Leytonstone High Road. We collaborated with her on a musical. We showed Annie, the 2014 version. Mm-hmm. And before that, we cut some clips together and really got her out into the spotlight, really. Her influences growing up as a dancer, as a choreographer, and as a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. And that was our creative contribution, together with the commissioned film One Day in Langthorne Park, which was made by my partner in cinematic crime, Marcus Shepherd, and which featured on the Sunday at the LLF, which was fantastic, very well received. And I think you might be talking to him about that in a little bit more detail. And then we were able to once again contribute to the technical aspect of things at the beautiful amphitheatre in Langthorne Park. So we were there for 3 nights on the Friday, Saturday, and the Sunday, although unfortunately the rain descended on Sunday, so we headed back indoors. But it was a fantastic event, and wonderful to be part of it again this year.
What was the atmosphere like in the amphitheatre for the days you didn't get the rain?
Wow, it was absolutely wonderful. I mean, the last time we were there, it was fully COVID compliant. I mean, it was fully COVID compliant this year, but restricted audience last year. This year, deck chairs, real buzz about it. We Are Parable programmed the Friday and the Saturday night. So Friday night was more shorter film format, and then the Saturday was an amazing film called West Indies, made in France in the 70s, which there is only one copy, we believe, which they managed to get from the Parisian archives.
Amazing.
And it was a real buzz, and lovely to see some people coming back who came last year and open it up to people that were coming for the first time.
And what for you what was a highlight for you personally from Leytonstone Loves Film?
I think for me, I would have to go back to our bit with Sam Francis. I think she's a massively influential figure locally. She's a real doer, real grafter. She's an ex-professional dancer and choreographer herself. She's really creating something quite miraculous down at the Nexus Centre, bringing younger generations into dance and just general sort of arts appreciation. So to be able to spotlight the focus on her, bring her out, as I was saying, bring her out from the shadows, from the wings, put her front and center. And we just talked to her about what her big influences were. And she chose some amazing stuff from the Andrews brothers to Bill Fosse, you know, her choreographers, and particularly on film. What would she want the younger generations to watch and to be marveled by? And we achieved that. There were some people in the audience just open-mouthed at the clips that she had chosen that we showed. And I think you just got another dimension to her as well. It's so important to inspire younger generations with what's gone before. And they can take things and leave things, but in essence, you know, some of the stuff that was being done back in the golden age of Hollywood, and you know, right up to more modern choreography, it's all there. And of course, sorry, not that. Did I say the Andrew brothers? I meant the Nicholas brothers. You know, the element of marginalisation, you know, ethnicity and diversity not being fully appreciated at the time, but they were doing some remarkable stuff. That it's still, every time I watch it, is still quite mind-blowing. So that for me was my highlight of LLF 2021.
Nice one. So what next for Stowe Filmhouse? What's on the horizon?
Well, we're heading back indoors as we always do. We had another amazing summer despite COVID and bits of the weather. You expect that. But we're heading back indoors. We haven't got a venue set up, but we're recceing some, and we're hoping to announce a sort of winter program very soon, and it's going to be very exciting. Lots, as always, some added value. It's not just about putting a screen up and putting a film or pressing play for us. There's always other little elements that come into play. So, yeah, watch this space. Really, can't really say much more.
Well, look, thank you very much for coming back to tell us how Leytonstone Loves Film went.
You're very welcome, Stuart. Thank you for all you've done this year.
You are listening to the Leytonstone Loves Film podcast series. Let's get back to the interviews.
This is JJ from Wilma, the Community Diversity Music and Arts organisation based in Waltham Forest, and we exist to reduce loneliness and isolation and connect individuals and communities.
And you were at the Leytonstone Loves Film, and so how was your Leytonstone Loves Film?
Our experience for the first time in Leytonstone Loves Film was completely amazing. Thanks so much to We Are Parable for nominating us to be involved. It was just such a fantastic experience. The Barbican was so supportive of us as a grassroots organisation, doing things in the community, and we're still buzzing from it, really. It was just amazing.
And how did the workshops go?
The workshops were oversubscribed, I'll be honest. There was more people than almost triple what we expected.
Wow.
Especially with the pandemic. But, you know, we managed to accommodate everybody. We found a way, and the workshops, so we ran 2 workshops and an event, which was the lockdown art exhibition. And it was just really successful. It was very different. Nothing like this had been done before, because we'd literally kind of done a heritage project where we brought back the lost cinemas of Leytonstone with about 4 architects from our team.
Yeah.
And it was very unusual. It was amazing. Yeah, amazing.
And outside of the work you were directly involved with, was there any highlights of Leytonstone Loves Film you want to share with us?
Yeah, I think the highlight for us was, thanks to the Barbican and Leytonstone Loves Film, we were finally able to come back into the community. It was our first comeback workshops since the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
And so a big thank you really to everyone involved. The Barbican team took such good care of us. Rachel, Lara, Wilma, Divya, so many people. Faith, have to mention Faith, and Woody, all the AV people. We were really well looked after, and it really helped us to actually make it happen. So just wanted to say thank you. And it was just that's what we're about, just being able to deliver again in the community, to vulnerable people, to people who've had such a tough time. They actually didn't want to leave the workshops. We ended up very kindly, they allowed us to stay longer because we couldn't stop. For instance, I mean, I won't disclose people's names and things, but we did have artists who are disabled and had deaf and disabled artists as well. And we didn't want to tear them away from the artwork they were doing, and we were allowed to stay longer. And just a big thank you for that, because it is all about trying to get people to express themselves creatively and what they're feeling. And yeah, it was just amazing. Like I said, we're still buzzing, really.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. And it just gives me to say thank you very much, JJ, for coming back on the podcast to discuss Leytonstone Loves Film and let people know what's happening in Waltham Forest.
Yeah, and thank you very much for plugging our projects as well. And it's been a pleasure to listen to the Britflicks podcasts, and we'll be watching everything you do. Thanks so much.
You are listening to the Leytonstone Loves Film podcast series. Let's get back to the interviews.
This is Sam Francis, the CEO of X7 Productions.
What's X7 Productions?
X7 Productions is we're an organisation that delivers bespoke performing arts of all different genres.
Brilliant. And how was your Leytonstone Loves Film?
It was amazing. What a great turnout.
What did you remind people what it was you did and what happened?
So we did a weekend full of film. Mm-hmm. We did a project called So Solid, a community project that was a mixture. There was 3 of us that came together to produce a cinema night.
Yeah.
I showcased In Plain Sight, which is my short film, with young people from the local area. It was a story about a young girl, and that went really well. And it was just nice having everyone together from stories and suppers from E17 Avenue memories. And it was just a great vibe and a great feeling.
Fantastic. Thinking about the sort of wider event and stuff of Leytonstone Film Festival, any highlights for you or memories that you want to give us as an anecdote?
Yeah, I mean, what happened on the 19th is that we also had another night, and we worked with a Stove Film Lounge.
Okay,
and that was brilliant. So they interviewed me about my favourite musicals, and I really enjoyed it because I got to see some footage that I hadn't seen for a while.
Okay,
and then I got to see the feel of the audience. I mean, just seeing some of the young people that had never seen people like Nicholas Brothers or Freddie Astaire, some of those amazing musicals, and Bob Fosse. So I really enjoyed that part of it because it was such an audience participation. And Nick and the whole team, all of them were great.
I guess for you as a performer, that's like coming full circle, isn't it? Talking about your favourites.
Yeah, it was. It was something that Nick and Marcus came up with. And I was like, well, I'm not sure because it's about me. And they said, no, Sam, it's not just about you. It's just about you influencing others as well. So, so I think it's something that we try, but actually it really worked. And then we got to show some of my other short films, Dare to Dream, and another short film called Stand Up and Be Heard, which was very much young people's thoughts about how they felt about lockdown and how they're going to move forward.
Okay.
So it was a great night. I mean, what I love about Leytonstone Loves Film is just the fact that there's so many opportunities to see so many different types of film.
Yeah.
So there's something for everybody.
And just out of interest, what were some of the things that the young people were saying about their thoughts on the COVID?
Yeah, I mean, we used the forum of drama, monologues, singing and dance. So some of it was a physical view of it all.
Yeah.
A lot of them just feel like it's been a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
And feeling isolated and trying to figure out how to get back to normality. And the way they seem to be connecting is to keep having conversations and keep connecting to being able to express themselves through the avenue of performing arts. But they were all very connected to the fact that what kept them going is our industry, film, music, dance, anything that allowed their spirit to feel free and connect to other people in a different way was what they felt was really interesting.
No, often the most underrated value of the creative industries, I feel, is the way it helps people connect, whether that be physically in the room or just hearing words of a lyric and thinking, oh my God, they're thinking the same thing as me, my word.
No, definitely. So it was nice hearing their thoughts. I mean, some of it was deeper, how they felt about the politicians, how they felt about what they had to say, how much they didn't believe the media, wasn't sure what was true. So I love it. I love the fact that they just had a chance to make sure their voices are being heard. So there's more of that to come.
Cool. And what have you got going on in the immediate future in the run up to Christmas? What's happening?
Oh my gosh. As always, we're very grateful. We're very busy. I'm in the process of making another film called Magic Within. It's going to be a short film, probably about 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, again, an expression of our young people. I wanted them to connect to what makes them unique. I wanted them to connect to the fact that, my gosh, I love that we're all so different. I love that we've got different color skin, different color eyes, you know, and what makes you stand out from that other person? What makes you unique? So that's what the film's about. So that's what we're creating at the moment, and hopefully having it ready for Christmas.
Cool. And what will you be showing that at the studios?
Yeah, we should be showing it at the studios. Yeah, we will be in December. We haven't got a date for it yet, though.
Okay.
And yeah, and also on YouTube, launching it on YouTube so everyone can get access to it.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, just gives me to say thank you very much for coming back and giving us your thoughts on Leytonstone Loves Film.
No, brilliant. Thank you so much for having us.
That's it for this episode of Leytonstone Loves Film 2021 podcast series. If you've got time, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you for listening. Leytonstone Loves Film is produced by the Barbican in partnership with local residents and organisations and is commissioned by the London Borough of Waltham Forest, supported by Arts Council England.
Guys, do you want to lose weight fast, have more energy, and improve your health? Now you can with Nutrisystem for Men. Get delicious breakfasts, lunches, and dinners, even snacks and shakes delivered right to your door. All delivered for free. It's easy to follow, and you'll see results in your first week. Go to Nutrisystem.com/meal now and get 50% off everything. And with their new premium meals, guys get bigger, bolder meals with up to 30 grams of protein and 25% more calories to keep you feeling full and satisfied as you drop the pounds. Just go to Nutrisystem.com/meal right now and get 50% off. You heard me right. Go to Nutrisystem.com/meal right now and get 50% off everything. Forget about takeout and fast food. Nutrisystem for Men is real food and real simple. It's all planned out and delivered right to your front door. Don't wait. This special offer will not last forever. Just go to Nutrisystem.com/meal right now and get 50% off. Go to Nutrisystem.com/meal.